Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be talking about President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's visit to Portugal, the first after the Portuguese president was inaugurated last March, Marcelo de Sousa. We're going to be talking about the prospects of this visit and actually the outcome that we would be hoping for. Also, the president concluded this two-day visit and he's now on to Equatorial Guinea to attend a two-day Arab-African conference and summit in Malabo. And joining us here in the studio to shed more light on this tour is Ambassador Dr. Samir Borhan, former Assistant Foreign Minister. And we're also joined by Professor Dr. Ali Masoud, the Dean of the School of Politics and Economics at Beni Suef University. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion, let's check out this report regarding President Sisi's visit to Portugal, the capital Lisbon, and we'll be right back.
Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa received President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi at the Presidential Palace in Lisbon City on Monday. During their meeting, the two leaders discussed ways to boost bilateral cooperation in various domains. Their talks tackled ways to develop the two countries' relationship in future and strengthen their economic, political and diplomatic ties. They reviewed efforts to combat terrorism and illegal immigration, as well as the latest developments in the Middle East region, plus ways to increase Portuguese tourism in Egypt. Sisi congratulated the new Portuguese Secretary General of the United Nations, saying that this election reaffirms the important role Portugal plays on the international level. In a joint press conference, President Sisi said Egypt appreciates Portugal's balanced stance towards the democratic transition process in Egypt and its understanding of the Egyptian people's desire for progress and freedom. Sisi said he trusts Portugal's support in building a democratic and progressive Egypt. The president went on to say that during his meeting with de Sousa, it was obvious that Portugal is aware of the rather important role Egypt is playing in the region. He also said there was significant progress in the bilateral relations and cooperation between the two countries over the past few years. Sisi added there will be a joint committee for economic and technical cooperation that will hold its first meeting in the near future. He also urged Portuguese investors to take advantage of the opportunities in infrastructure and development projects in Egypt. The president said the two countries are geographically close and should work together to tackle several issues, including terrorism, extremism, and illegal migration. Sisi concluded the press conference by saying he is looking forward to increased cooperation between the two countries. He said it also affirms the important role Portugal has on the international level and its ability to maintain national peace and security.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and starting off our discussion right away. Now, Ambassador Dr. Borhan, this is the first visit by President Sisi to Portugal after the inauguration of President Marcelo de Sousa last March. In fact, this is the first visit by an Egyptian president in 24 years to Portugal. Now, what is the significance of such a visit, and why did it take so long to actually have an official visit by the head of state to Portugal?
Thank you very much for this question. I think we have neglected so many countries in Europe, like Portugal, Spain, Cyprus, Greece. I think this is our very good opportunity to rebuild our relationship between Egypt and those countries north the Mediterranean Sea and the countries south the Mediterranean Sea, including Egypt. So I think this is a very good opportunity. And we have, as you have already mentioned, that the last visit by an Egyptian president, I think it may be President Sadat or Hosni Mubarak, I think, which was the last visit which he visited Lisbon. We are now trying to rebuild our relations. And we are in dire need for investments from Europe And Portugal has already inaugurated and launched a very successful program for revitalization of the economy. So I think if we can gain benefit from the Portuguese expertise in this connection, I think might be very important for Egypt, as we are now trying to reshape our economy, and we are trying to reinvest our efforts in so many fields, either industrial or agricultural or any other sectors. So I think by rebuilding and trying to get benefit of the Portugal expertise and experience in this field, I think might be very helpful for Egypt in its course to rebuild and revive the Egyptian economy.
Yes. Well, Dr. Masoud, talking about the Egyptian economy now, the presidency has been doing a lot of visits to different countries around the world in different continents, in Asia, China, India. The presidency also went to Russia, went to Cyprus, went to Greece, a lot of visits, and always during these visits we hear about enhancing and strengthening the economic cooperation between Egypt and all these countries. Now, what is Lisbon, or what is Portugal really well known of? I mean, we know the titles that they're working on a lot of infrastructure and developmental projects. How strong is Portugal economically in this sector, and are there any other sectors that they can be a cooperation between Egypt and Portugal can be quite fruitful and beneficial?
Well, actually, let me start by saying that the economic ties between Egypt and Portugal it is really low. You are talking about inter-trade between the two countries. It is only 200 million euro, which is extremely very low, giving the relation stable, political relation between Egypt and Portugal. So what actually the importance of this visit to Portugal? Yes, we are taking very serious steps in two ways. The first one, infrastructure. And as you know, last year, actually, we have almost more than 5,000 kilometers of roads was built in here. We have electricity plants. Egypt, which is extremely very large and mega, comparing in other world. And the other direction that the Egyptian government is taking now is moving toward renewable energy, solar energy and other forms of renewable energy. And both sectors, actually, Portugal has a very long expertise in them. And I believe President Sisi mentioned in his talk, actually, in the press conference in Portugal, he talked about both two sectors, because actually Portugal has really good experience in this. And President Sisi invited, as usually he does everywhere he goes, he usually invites investors to come to Egypt. Look who actually joined the president when he was in Portugal. Two of our ministers, besides for sure Minister Shukri, they joined by the investment ministers and the trade minister, which it tells you this. You know, as a professor of economics, I can say this is the main core of visit of the presidency to Portugal was economic. Well, this is one issue. But regarding the president visiting so many countries, well, very simple question. What we really need from other countries? Two things. Well, we need their investments, something from them, like investments and expertise and technology, high-tech or whatever. And we need also, on the other side, we need to open market. So usually and the government is playing in this, trying to actually attract investment. And regarding foreign direct investments, it is not only about finance. This is something we really should consider and put in our mind when we deal with foreign investors. Foreign direct investments is one of the tools that you can actually transfer technology from developed country to your country. And this is happening in China, and I'm happy that we have our ambassador in China. That is the experience of a Chinese experience, actually. One part of it, actually, the FDI really helped so much in transferring technology from those three countries to China.
Yes. Well, Ambassador Dr. Borhan, as Dr. Masoud mentioned, this visit there is a lot of economic importance regarding this visit, but also the presidency mentioned, really spoke well, the balanced political attitude and life in Portugal towards the transition of democracy here in Egypt. Now, how much political weight does Portugal have in terms of a country within the European Union, pardon, and really taking part of a lot of maybe having some sort of an inclination within the decisions made by the European Union towards what's happening in the Middle East and especially Egypt?
Let us look back into history, and I think Portugal was a colonial power. It colonized Mozambique and Angola, once from two African countries, very important African countries, and she lived for a long time under dictatorship by President Salazar. So I think by the change into democracy, I think Portugal has gained very good experience, and I think after the downfall of Salazar, and she lived for a democratic institution for 30 years or nearly 40 years now after Salazar. So I think we can gain from the democratic change in Portugal and the expertise they have already taken, and we can borrow that expertise and from Portugal in the democratic change, closed political system into open political system. Don't mention dictatorship or despotism or whatever. So this is one thing. The other thing which we might be gaining from Portugal, adding to my dear colleague, Dr. Masoud has said, the tourism. Spain and Portugal is very important countries in receiving tourists from all over the world, especially from Europe and the United States. I think Spain receives nearly 60 million tourists per year, and Portugal around 40 million tourists per year. I think what they have done to get the tourism flourish in those countries, I think this is very important. I think by low fares, low aircraft fares or airplane fares, cheap lodges, chores, very affordable for the medium tourists. I think this is very important.
Yes, but whenever we speak about political powers in Europe, we always think of the UK, Germany, France, Italy. Where does Portugal stand in comparison to these powers?
They are receiving tourists because of the warm weather in the South Mediterranean Sea, like south of France, Portugal, and Spain. So I think it is the same as ours in the north coast and or our sites in Garda and Sharm el-Sheikh and all those places, very good places. So I think we can get same expertise from Portugal's and how they administer the tourism industry, because they have the ethics to spread the ethics and the morals of tourism to the middleman and even to the lower man.
Yes.
So I think this is what we need.
Yes.
Because if for instance, if you just take a taxi, the taxi might give you a very unaffordable price for a very short distance,
yes.
which is not the case in those countries.
Yeah.
I think this is what we might be needing from Portugal, Spain, and all those, just to spread the ethics, the morals, and how to attract the ordinary tourists from low countries, just like Spain, Portugal, Greece, Cyprus, and the countries in Eastern Europe,
yes.
Romania, Bucharest, Hungary, Russia, all
yes.
those countries.
Yes.
We need to spread the thinking of how to attract the tourist,
yes.
and how to treat the tourist in a good way, that he might go back to his country and invite others to
yes.
come to Egypt, because it is a very good, affordable country.
Yes, definitely. Well, Dr. Masoud, you spoke about encouraging the economic cooperation between Egypt and Portugal, and that is really the case in many other countries as well. Egypt is working on a lot of trade agreements between countries all over the world, not just in Europe, but also other continents. Now, if we look at Portugal as a country, or any other European country, what would be better to actually strengthen the one-on-one bilateral economic cooperation and relation between each and every single country, or would it be better to actually try and strengthen the trade cooperation between Egypt and the European as a whole? If we can't really get or maximize the trade with the European Union as a whole, is it better right now to work on each and every single country on their own?
Well, there is no contrast between them, actually. Working to actually strengthen our relations and our trade with relations with individual countries, for sure is going to help to put our trade agreements with the European Union as a whole in act. And for sure, whenever we deal with the European Union as a unity, actually, is going to help us actually in strengthening our individual countries' relation. So I don't think there is a contrast between the two approaches. However, well, as Portugal is a member of European Union, then strengthening our trade relation with one of them means what? Directly means strengthening with the whole European Unions. Exactly.
Yes. Well, Ambassador Dr. Borhan, a lot of political observers are actually looking at the presidency's recent visits, and they actually saw that the presidency has been going to Greece, Cyprus, Italy as well, France, Portugal. So a lot of the visits are to countries surrounding the Mediterranean area and the Mediterranean Sea. Now, is there some sort of a significance? Is this some sort of a trying to get all the countries around the Mediterranean on Egypt's good side? Is there some sort of a political preparation for anything that might happen in the future?
Let us go back into history as well, because I think it was an initiative by France to have all the Mediterranean countries around the Mediterranean basin to have some kind of cooperation or some kind of an organization. And I think this is, I think Egypt and the presidency and the foreign Egyptian, the Egyptian foreign policy, I think to revive these connections between the countries around the Mediterranean, especially the up Mediterranean and down Mediterranean, or North Mediterranean and South Mediterranean. I think this is very good trend in the Egyptian policy to strengthen this relationship between the Mediterraneans. And for history, I think the Mediterranean has always been the hub of civilization. Pharaonic civilization, Greek civilization, and Roman civilization. And I think in the Renaissance, in France, Italy, and all those countries. So I think this is, and we have very good ties between the Egypt and countries around the Mediterranean. As we were subjected to the French invasion, we were part of the Roman Empire in one place. We were part of the Greek Empire in another. Another epoch or another strata of civilization. So I think we have so many ties between ourselves and our Egypt and Greece, Italy, France, Portugal, and Spain.
Yes.
Spain and Portugal was part of the Andalusia or the Arab Empire in subcontinent of Iberia.
Yes.
So Spain and has been under the Arab rule for nearly 800 years.
Yes.
So this is very important to reconnect with people, and I think those people we have so many features in common.
Yes, definitely. Well, Dr. Masoud, we saw the President and his accompanying delegation meeting a lot of Portuguese businessmen, talking about enhancing the investment between both countries, encouraging investors to come to Egypt and invest in the country. And we saw that happen with many other countries. But still the problem remains, which is the foreign investors. After all these visits and after all the projects and the potential opportunities that we see, always the foreign investor is quite hesitant to come to Egypt because of all the bureaucracy, all the problems with the investment law, the fluctuating value of the Egyptian pound against the dollar. So does that still count, all these visits? I mean, really materialize in good practical work and cooperation, or are these basically formalities that are being done?
No, it is not just formality. I believe President Sisi, actually what he's doing is really establishing a very good base for encouraging and attracting foreign investors to come to Egypt. Still, the investment environment in Egypt that really not that attractive for foreigners and even for local investments.
Yes.
Because of what you said regarding the bureaucracy, all the red tapes and all of what is really going on. So this is one issue actually. Regarding the fluctuation of the Egyptian pound's values in the exchange market or foreign exchange market, now by floating the Egyptian pound in the exchange market, I believe is going to be done in 5 or 6 months. At maximum, it's going to be 8 months. And the foreign exchange market is going to stabilize for somehow.
Yes.
So this is the issue. So we are moving toward really both the very, very good basics for attracting foreign. But still, if you go back a little bit, a couple of weeks ago, when I believe last week, when the Al-Akhbari newspaper, our Al-Akhbari news agency has its economic conference, and they invited for sure the Prime Minister of Egypt, and when the Egyptian Prime Minister talks about the economic for the Egyptian government in the future, he mentioned so much about attracting investors and the new laws and how to actually reform the court system to solve the conflict. We can see last year in 2015, we solved 170 really major conflict and in the court system, in economic dispute. So once the government actually realized where the weakness actually is, then the solution is gonna be, it is very easy to put it in a place. It's for sure it takes time, it takes efforts, it takes resources in order to make it. But as we can say, well, getting or diagnosing actually the weakness or the problem is half the solution, actually, as we say it.
Well, the diagnosis already happened, or at least the main features of it, the headlines of it, which was the investment law. There was talk about having a one-window sort of process, actually, to encourage investors to come and invest in Egypt. Why didn't we resolve this, even though this has been an issue for quite a few years? Why didn't we resolve it and then go to these countries and talk about, well, we've resolved these issues, now you can come and just get the work done?
Well, it is not only about laws and papers and documents. It is about the mentality of the people actually who are working in the field of investments in Egypt. Still, the culture is the same.
Yes.
Well, the stereotype of Egyptian in common, in general, that businessman is someone who get money and makes other people's maybe poor. So this is the stereotype of businessman. So in such a business environment, it is really not easy just by changing a law or decrees or whatever. So regarding giving lands freeze for foreign investors, giving tax incentives, well, I repeated many times, this is not the main factors that actually businessman is looking for. We're looking for friendly business environment at a whole. And even when foreign investors come to country, the first thing he looks at, or one of the main things he looks at, well, if I get into a dispute or in, a dispute with or a conflict with a partner, is gonna solve it very easily or not. If I really want to get out of the country, is it easy or it is really tough to do it? So we really have to work very hard, not only in laws, in papers, and one window. Well, we have one window so many years, not from now, but get what? It is, I believe, it complicated even things, make it more complicated. So need to change the cultures of the people who are really running the area. I'm not talking about the investment, the Ministry of Investment only. Go down to the industrial zones.
Middle ground.
In the industrial zones. In the Upper Egypt, for instance, in my governorate, Sohag, we have 4 industrial zones in Sohag. One of them is the oldest or the oldest industrial zone in the Upper Egypt. Okay, but do really people who are working in this industrial zone are really qualified to deal with investors or not? So this is a huge issue. If I'm talking about even Sohag case as a case, we really should look at it. The government provided actually the major infrastructure, provided completely the infrastructure. Mainly, we got airport just to investors and for enhancing the trade and so on. Most of the Sohag actually infrastructure were done by the last 15 years. But still, the culture, the mentality, the qualifications, the quality of people who are dealing with this issue is still really beyond actually the expectations.
Well, Ambassador Dr. Borhan, now President Sisi also congratulated the appointment of the UN Secretary General, the Portuguese Antonio Guterres. Now, he is a man that we're going to be talking about quite a lot in the future. What sort of significance or importance does that have, having the actually coinciding more or less with the appointment of Antonio Guterres as the UN Secretary General? Do you think this has any sort of significance or relation to the visit, or not so much?
I think we have supported Mr. Guterres to be the Secretary, the United Nations Secretary General for a long time. I think we supported his nomination against his all challenges from other candidates. And I think the President de Sousa of Portugal has already mentioned that in his speech in response to our President's speech. And we think that to have a Secretary General from the European countries, South European countries, I think this is might be encouraging for our causes. We have some friendly faces in the Secretary General office. I think if we have friendly faces, I think this could enhance the cooperation between our delegations and Arab delegations and the southern European countries, our southern European Secretary General. So I think it has a significance, yes. It has a significance.
Definitely, let's hope so. And ladies and gentlemen, President Sisi also talked about the United States President-elect Donald Trump, saying that he actually has a great understanding of the goings-on in the Middle East. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
In an interview to Portugal's media this week, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said there was a 38% increase in the rate of trade between Egypt and Portugal last year, calling for expanding cooperation in the fields of trade and investment. Sisi hailed ties between the two nations in various domains. In an interview with the Portuguese news agency Lusa ahead of the President's visit to Lisbon, the President praised the United States President-elect Trump, said he expected greater engagement in the Middle East from his administration. Sisi said he personally respected and appreciated Trump, adding that he believed that Trump would be more rigorously engaged with the issues of the Middle East region. President Sisi expressed appreciation for the U.S. President-elect as the choice of the American people. He said he expected stronger Egyptian-U.S. ties under Trump's administration. He also noted that Trump has shown deep and great understanding of what is taking place in the region as a whole and what is taking place in Egypt, adding that he was looking forward and expecting more support and reinforcement of Egyptian-U.S. bilateral relations. President Sisi, who had met Trump in September in New York, downplayed the U.S. leader's calls to ban or extremely vet Muslims entering the United States, saying that they have got to draw a distinction between rhetoric that takes place within presidential campaigns and the real and actual administration of the country.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Dr. Masoud, regarding this interview of President Sisi actually holding it with the Portuguese media, he really talked about Donald Trump as a president for the United States. Now, we understand Donald Trump doesn't really have as much political experience as he does in economic terms. Now, he will be the president in January. How do you view the future or the prospects of the future of relations between Egypt and the U.S. administration, especially on the economic fronts with Trump's expertise in economic affairs?
Well, actually, let me get my view in that. Views in that. Well, any president does not need to have very strong expertise in economics. You know, he's a president of political positions for sure. So this is one issue. The relation between Egypt and the United States is a relation between institutions, not a relation between two persons or two people, two presidents. It is a relation between institutions in Egypt and institutions in the United States. And the relation between Egypt and the United States were really strong relations since back, you know, you go back in the history. Yes, sometimes you have like fluctuations in this relation, but still, Egypt is playing very strategic roles in the Middle East. So it is good in the same track with American interest whatsoever. Egypt also looks at the United States as a really good partner, a strong partner. In terms of economic relation, the most single individual country in terms of economic ties and trade is the United States, actually. So it's still, we have the Egyptian-American Chamber of Commerce actually playing this very important role in strengthening the economic ties between and trade ties between the United States and Egypt. If it is not going to be improving, I don't think it's going to be declining.
So it's either staying the same or improving, but not declining.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, Ambassador Dr. Borhan, a lot of people were kind of surprised that actually Donald Trump won the elections, and everyone was expecting Hillary Clinton to win it. Now, President Sisi was one of the first leaders to actually congratulate Donald Trump. When we talk about their meeting on the sidelines of the UN Assembly earlier on, there was talk about how warm or good this was. Donald Trump praised President Sisi, saying that he is a strong leader. Now President Sisi is also saying that he has a really good understanding of what's going on in the Middle East region. Do you feel that this is a strong sentiment, not just felt by between two leaders, but also there was a big portion of Arab population in general actually quite happy with Donald Trump taking office, as opposed to Hillary Clinton, with the history of what of her involvement in Syria and Iraq and all of these developments that took place earlier?
Well, you remember that the last meeting in our daily debate, I think I told you that I put my lots behind Hillary Clinton and I lost. So I think I congratulate you and I congratulate Donald Trump for his...
Well, I wasn't really rooting for anyone, but I said that you were quite convinced that Hillary Clinton was actually going to win.
This is my reading of the image in the political scene. But let us discuss it in objective ways. I think, as Dr. Masoud has already said, that we are dealing with institutions in the United States.
Yes.
We try to expose our criteria on the political American political policy, because we put great weight behind our presidents and our kings and our sheikhs or whatever. It is not the case in the United States, because the presidency as an institution is one institution among others. This is, we have the Pentagon, we have the Congress, we have the ministry, even the universities and the pressure groups. All those are players in the foreign policy of the United States. So the presidency is one among others, or one among equals. So I think by trying to build personal ties or personal relationship between our president and the president, it is, in a way, it is a very good omen. It is a very good omen to have a friendly face, a friendly figure in the American administration, as we have in the last Republican Mr. Eisenhower. Eisenhower was the driving force behind the withdrawal of France and England, or Britain and France and Israel in 1956. So I think we tried by trying to build the relationship, especially or in particular that our president has already studied in the war college in the United States, and he has so many friends there, or so many colleagues in the administration, especially in the Pentagon or in the military elites. So I think that this effort try to we think that trying to build this relationship between our president and President Trump, I think it will give us so many gains in the American administration.
Well, during the interview, the president was asked about his opinion regarding the inflammatory rhetoric of Donald Trump actually having a ban on Muslims coming to the United States, and the president replied, well, I don't think that these statements by Donald Trump or this rhetoric does really reflect the actions he will take as president. So do you agree with the president, or do you think that he will actually go along with all these the big talk that he actually had?
The election rhetoric is something, and when you are trying to direct the policy, actual policy of the United States, is another thing. When you are behind the wheel or driving wheel is something, and when you are in the back seat is another thing. So I think he was in the back seat, so he was just giving talks and whatever it is, just to convince the American people, or to try to gain some victory on his opponents. But when you are behind the driving wheel, I think this is something else.
Yes. Well, Dr. Masoud, one economy in the world is the United States, and it's known that the second biggest economy in the world is China. Now, during the elections campaigns, Donald Trump's campaign, there was actually also strong rhetoric regarding China, towards China and the cooperation with China, and all of the plans that they might have in store for the United States. Do you feel that we are approaching an age of really sort of aggressive competition between the number one and the number economic powerhouses in the world?
Well, the competition actually is not between governments. It's a competition between firms and companies and businessmen here and there. And what I see, there is a win-win situation between both sides. But what I can see actually from my last visit to United States, when I visited some area that it is famous by industry in Southern California, I found many manufacturers actually changed their names from American names, English written by English, Chinese name written by Chinese. So it tells you that the Chinese actually now has really good impact on the American economy. That's no way that you can neglect it anyway.
Yes.
So you really have to deal with it and try to maximize your benefit with your other competitor. It is not about we are fighting together. We try to play games together in order to maximize my benefits.
Yes. Ambassador, now the president wrapped up his 2-day visit to Portugal, and now he's on his way to Equatorial Guinea to take part in the 2-day summit of the Arab-African Summit. Talking about how Egypt is strengthening its ties with all countries around the world. You said earlier that Egypt neglected a lot of countries, some in Europe and definitely some in Africa. Recently now, how far do you think Egypt has gone in terms of strengthening relations with African countries?
We have not neglected some of African countries. We have neglected most of the African countries. So I think this is Egyptian come back to Africa. And I think we should applaud this trend in the foreign Egyptian policy to come back to Africa, because Africa is our backyard and Africa is our support in international organization, in the United Nations, in everywhere. So Africa needs us and we need Africa. So the most important thing, and this is what I expect our president is going to stress upon in the Arab African countries, is that Egypt is an African country as well as it is an Arab country, and we should put hand in hand with our brothers in Africa and our brothers in the Arab world to strengthen the common causes between Egypt or between the Arabs and the Africans, because we are all the Arabs and the Africans are developed countries, are in the same boat. We have the same deficiencies in economics and in politics, and we were subjected to colonial powers. Nearly all Africa and nearly most of the Arab countries were subjected to British and French colonialism. Colonialism.
Yes.
So I think this is I think the message our president might be addressing to the Arab African Summit.
Yes, definitely. Well, Dr. Do you feel it is easier for Egypt to strengthen its economic trade with African countries as opposed to European countries? Is it easier to actually convince African countries and Arab countries around Egypt to engage in a lot of trade agreements and trade cooperation?
Well, trade agreements was one part of the story. It is not all the parts. Well, at the end of the day, even the right trade agreements, who will conduct the trade itself? Businessmen, right?
Yes.
And traders and people from here and there and firms from these companies, from this country and the other countries. So by linking economic ties and giving opportunities for these people and firms and businessmen to move from this is going to open up the trade opportunities. What we look in African nations actually is to open market there. For sure, it is much better to compete in African market than in competing in other international markets, like going to compete in European Union market or United States or whatever. So it is very easy to compete in that market, but we need infrastructure for that actually. So we are moving in a good direction and right direction. The market potential actually, and that we can actually have gain lots of it, is the African market. So if we work very hard in that, we are going to gain even, I can say in maybe in 15 years, our gains from African market is going to be even more than from European market.
Well, Ambassador Dr. Borhan, if we're going to be talking about Egyptian-African relations, there's always this one topic, which is the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Now, this has been a big issue for Egypt for the past few years. Not really resolved. We're still waiting for the consultancy firms, after doing their research and everything, to actually find out the result that supposedly the three countries, Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia, will abide by. Do you see, let's imagine two scenarios. The good scenario is that it works in favor of Egypt somehow, and the bad scenario is that somehow it doesn't. What happens if it doesn't work out in favor of Egypt? Will really Egypt be suffering from a shortage of the Nile water?
Might happen. It might happen. Unfortunately, and let us talk frankly, I think we have ill-handled the files of Al-Nahda Dam, either because of our ill information about the dam and about in a way we have already lost the confidence of Ethiopia and Sudan in some of stages of the negotiations. This is one thing. The other thing, I think the Ministry of Irrigation, as well as the Ministry of Foreign Ministry, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and other institutions in the Egyptian government has handled the situation or the file inefficiently. Mm-hmm. And I say that even I was in some stage responsible about the legal affairs foreign ministry. But I think if we try to coordinate our efforts or to coordinate our stand, Egyptian stand, between all the Egyptian institutions, and we try to have connections with the Sudanese, because we are down river, Sudan and Egypt, yes. And the upper river is Ethiopia and the other countries. So I think we have to have common stand between Egypt and Sudan, not Ethiopia in a way in a fighting way, just to try to convince the Ethiopians and to try to that the dam by be called. I think from my readings, I think they have already built the dam in a higher way than it was before, and even this is against some kind of agreement between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. So I think if we kept silent, I think this will be affect our share of the water from the Nile. I think this is very, dangerous for the people. Now we are 90 million people. Yes. By 10 years time, I think we will pass 100 times. How are we going to feed and nourish our people? Definitely. So I think this is very important to try to see the advantages and the disadvantages of the dam, and try to cooperate between Egypt, Sudan in one way, and Ethiopia in the other way.
Well, Dr. Masoud, one final question, because we're running out of time. Now, if we do assume that this worst-case scenario actually takes place, it will affect Egypt's share of the Nile water, and consequently it will affect the agricultural sector here in Egypt, which is a very vital sector for the Egyptian economy. Do you feel that the government is actually preparing a plan B, having a plan just on standby in case this happens?
Well, I believe this file is not only in the hand of the government, as His Excellency says. That actually many Egyptian institutions actually is getting its hand on. Yes. So, well, in this issue, I'm not that specialized in the area of how the impact of the dam, but I can see that our political leadership and our government, I believe they have plans to deal with this worst scenario. Yes,
let's definitely hope so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. We're currently going to be following up on the latest developments of President Sisi's tour that takes him to Equatorial Guinea for the Arab-African Summit for the next 2 days. Before we go, I'd like to thank our very distinguished guest, Ambassador Dr. Samir Borhan, former Assistant Foreign Minister. I'd also like to thank very much Dr. Ali Masoud, the Dean of the School of Politics and Economics at Beni Suef University. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.